I already showed you the steps I'm going to take, so I'm not going to show them too much. We're going to take this one slow, the rest are going to be a lot faster. First off, the auto attacks, they're about average. Nothing too fancy here, no fancy chains, no progression. They do lean somewhat to the right though. Not all auto attacks are created equal. Hi-Rez believes it adds flavor. A character like Scylla shoots out from center mass. AMC is severely left-handed. Baba Yaga leans to the right. If you care about every last drop of efficiency, you will have a much easier time hitting your target if they are predominantly on the right side of your targeter. If you're trying to hit a running target, a juking target, obviously you have to lead your shot. You don't aim for where they are, you aim for where they're running to. Because your shots do lean to the right side of your targeter, you're going to have to lead your shot just a little bit more if they're juking or running away to the left side. Now for the kit, the passive Baba's house makes hooch. Yeah, buddy, good old cabin juice. 3 ways to make it. The house makes it naturally. It generates cabin juice when it moves, and it generates cabin juice when there's enemies nearby. So logically, it makes the most cabin juice whenever it is moving and it's near enemies, like a Bacchus looking for just one more sip. You can have up to 100 units of cabin juice, and it does 2 things. 1, it provides stacks for stacking items, and if you are not stacking items, it will give you a 0.8% max health heal per each tick. How do you measure cabin juice exactly? Use a little math to do in the passive here. You take 400 divided by the max item stacks, and that will tell you how much cabin juice you need. So if you wanted to stack Attacker's Blessing, you take 400 divided by the 100 max stacks it needs, and you get 4 juice makes 1 stack. Hide of the Urchin needs 8 stacks, so it's going to be 400 divided by the 8. You end up with 50 juice needed for 1 stack. And because you need 50 juice for 1 stack of Hide of the Urchin, and a house holds 100 juice, you are going to need 4 full cabins for this keg party. And before you get too smart for your own good, it only stacks evolving items. Those are all your blessings. Those are any items that say evolve in them. You get a new picture when it gets fully stacked. Oni Hunter's Garb, Doom Orb, Talisman of Energy. They all work with stacks, but they're not evolving stacking items. You can't use cabin juice on these. And if you're not stacking items, it heals you. Each tick of health gives you 0.8% of your max health back. Each tick costs you 4 cabin juice. 100 divided by 4 is 25 ticks. 25 ticks, 0.8% of your max health back each tick, meaning if you chug everything in the house, you are going to get a whopping 2% of your max health back and some concerned looks from the family. And how does the cabin work? It parks itself until Baba Yaga moves out of range. If she is out of range, it hikes up its skirt and walks over to her, then parks itself again. And those chicken legs are not just cosmetic, the house is actually a chicken. If an enemy comes too close within range to this chicken coop, it will attempt to take itself out of range, and then if it's out of range of Baba Yaga, it goes looking for her. Another oddity, if you have just a little bit of free time. Once you've returned to base, if the house is really far away, give it a second or two. Give the house a little cardio, get the juices flowing. You'll find this routinely strange with this character. In order to maximize character efficiency, she is kind of messing with her time efficiency. You're gonna need a little bit of planning, a little foresight, maybe a crystal ball or 2. Proxy a wave, perhaps go back to the fountain, let the house walk towards you. It's free real estate. On to the next one, the one that is the first ability. It is a projectile with 4 different shapes decided completely at random. Why is the first shape? It goes straight, then forks out. It has the most range by far. The next one has the shortest range, and because of that, it goes out counterclockwise, gets shy, and then comes on back. Next, we've got a straight shot forward and takes a hard turn right. Next one is the same, shoots straight forward, but takes the left at Albuquerque. All of them go through everything, walls, multiple enemies, will to live, everything. And they're not actually one projectile. The Y can hit a single enemy 3 times at the intersection. The L's can hit at the corners twice, and the oval can hit twice at the farthest and the closest peaks. However, any multiple hits on the same target will only hit for 10% of the damage after the first hit. The one can also have 4 different effects, also chosen completely at random. The line itself lasts for 4 seconds. Some of these effects will last a little longer after you've stepped off the line. You can get boosted protections for you and any ally who steps on it. It will last for 1 second after you've stepped off or it's disappeared. You can get increased movement speed for you or your allies. It too will last for 1 second after you've stepped off or it's disappeared. You can get an enemy slow that will last for 1 second after it disappears or you've stepped off. It says enemies, but it's actually just enemy gods. If it was all enemies, and at the start of the match she was lucky enough to get a slow effect, she could gain a little bit of pressure, use it on the enemy minions, they're slowed, her minions push forward, she maintains that pressure. It's the little things, but I digress. She's got the slow, the speed buff, the protection increase. It also has a silence. That effect does not linger after the enemy steps off. It it is only on the line. Tips for this one: you can see what shape you're going to get, what effect you're going to get right above the house. At the start of a match, you got a little free time while you're in the fountain. If you don't like the shape, if you don't like the effect, throw it out. And although it is hated, the oval is the only shape that will give you the self buffs automatically. All the other shapes, the projectile spawns in front of you. You have to step into it to get that buff. The oval spawns from you. You don't have to do anything. With the oval, if you need a quick shot, remember to shoot from the right side. That's where it comes out every time. When you are learning this character, don't even try to get fancy with it. Just hit it. It's going to be like Hoi 2.0, trying to get fancy with the ricochet. You miss. You could have just hit it straight on. Don't try to save any effects that you might get. You got a silencing Y? Oh well, clear the wave. Poke with it. Don't try to save it for some big team fight that's not going to happen. With the randomness and the inconsistencies, you are trying to be as consistent as possible. You cannot play here expecting to get the right effect or the right shape every time. Unless you're here because you got kicked out of a casino and you've got that itch to scratch, then go for it. Playing against it, I will admit, is a little frustrating. And let's talk about the randomness of the two. It is a splash potion. It is composed of 3 ingredients, Traveler. A dragon eye, that's the red circle. It increases the damage of your potion. 7.5% increased damage for each dragon eye in the potion. Dragon scales, those are the blue diamond looking things. Each of those applies a 12.5% slow for 2.5 seconds. And then a wolf tooth, that is the green fang looking thing. Each one of these adds a 7.5% attack speed slow and power reduction. Each ingredient, the composition of the potion is decided completely at random. When you select the potion, Traveler, you can see the recipe either hovering over your hand or in the little house passive. If you press the button again or right-click while there is a potion in your hand, the potion will go into your consumable slot. And if you accidentally press the button and you have no room for it, that's a shame. Either toss it or eat your wards. It's odd, I know. A few tips for it before I judge it. If you have the available slots, always use the ability and immediately put it in your slot. The ability does not go on cooldown while it's in your hand. It's better to throw it in the slot and inspect it later and get another one brewing. Really used to this ability because it does not come out fast. There's nothing fast about it. Don't panic and try to anticipate needing it, because once you press it to use it, it takes a while before it's in your hand, and then once you throw it, it takes a while to get there. It's got some travel time. Poke people down, be very defensive with this character, because if someone jumps on you, this is not going to save you. Tiny thing you have to keep track of with her is potion cycling. Potion in that slot as soon as possible. Pull out another one. Keep the one that you like. If you manage to whip out like 3 dragon scales or something, shove that bad boy in there, throw out the wolf fangs. Keep it in there for a rainy day, just keep using your 2. Note though that this ability at level 1 and 2 only has 3 ingredients. Then at level 3 and 4, it has 4 ingredients, and at level 5, it has 5. They also do more damage as you level them. So don't forget your FIFO, first in, first out. Once I level up, I usually get rid of the stale one, unless I really like the effect. If you already have a potion and you use your 2, you can use your 1, your 3, and your 4, but you can't auto attack. Some people don't care. I find it kind of important. A quick suggestion though, I find the passive recipe thing a little redundant. It shows the ingredients of the one in my hand that's showing me the ingredients. What would be kind of nice is if one would hover and show the ingredients, and then the one in the house is the one that's not in your hand. Or the one in the house shows the recipe of the one that's going to come next. Kind of helps with the redundancy and helps to add foresight to a completely random mechanic. It's just kind of odd to do that for the first ability and not the second one, even though they're both pretty much the same. Third ability creates a spell that allows you to self-destruct or execute your enemy. Which one you're going to get? It's a coin toss. Believable, but not really. 3 is actually, you tuck and roll, boy. You get % damage mitigations, that is good cast iron right there. And knock up immunities. Then at the end of it, you do some damage and you leap on out of there. This is probably my favorite move on this character. She makes that good guac in there, boy, extra 75 cents. She speeds up and slows down before firing off. The dash really won't get you further than if you were walking. The leap is what gives you some extra distance, but that sudden speed up and slow down is enough to throw anybody off. I love circling around people, zigzagging, and then taking off. Just be careful, because aside from that knock-up immunity, you got no other crowd control immunities in this, and you are very vulnerable to crowd control during that massive wind-up. It's a little mind game with this one too. If you're running away from somebody, you can roll into a wall, and you can choose to either go over or leap in place. Now this is an odd place for high-res to innovate. You see, most jumps are fully countered by other jumps. Normally, if somebody tries to jump in on you, you can avoid the damage and or crowd control and the follow-up by jumping away or turn the tables, jump on them. Oh, but the innovation, the damage comes before the jump. Because of the area around it where it does damage and it does a pretty decent chunk of change, you can either stay close, eat the damage, and then follow up, or you run away preemptively. This is a nice move. Many a times I have rolled in, redirected my jump, and went back to where I was, or dashed into a squishy character. They jump first to avoid the damage, but I follow you. And if it doesn't look like they're gonna jump, you cut off their path. If they do decide to jump afterwards, or you go back in place, the possibilities are endless. Endless is like 3. But still, it's more than just I jump, you jump. Finally, the ultimate, the house comes crashing down on Baba Yaga. Does damage to enemies in the surrounding area and knocks them up and away from Baba Yaga. You have now become one with the house, and if there isn't a Mecha Yaga skin, I will be severely disappointed. While in the house, you gain a flat shield and you can fire 4 fire bolts. When it hits the ground, it does explosive damage and then leaves a fiery ring. We're gonna be sued by the ghost of Johnny Cash. Oh yes. Do rings of fire, do follow the enemy, and do burning damage. You stay in the house for 8 seconds or until you use all 4 shots. Few notes, careful when you use this because you do slow down, then root yourself for just a little bit before returning to normal speed. You are crowd control immune in the house, you are not damage immune. You still generate cabin juice while in the house, and this should have the fastest rate of generation for cabin juice because it is making it normally, it is by enemies, and it is moving. If you want to get as much cabin juice as you can from this, use 3 shots and then wait till the last second to use the 4th one so you don't get out of it early. Firing mechanics on this feel kind of funny as if they were made for some medieval time traveler. You can shoot to fire, move a little bit, it'll lock on, it will have a lot of travel time. If you've ever played any game that has catapults or mortar strikes in it, you're probably going to be a little better than most with this. It takes some getting used to. The whole kit takes some getting used to. The knockup is away from center, so keep that in mind. Your positioning when you're going to use this thing. You might accidentally throw some kills away from your team. And if you're better with it, you can knock enemies into your team. Now let's talk about the playstyle. I don't like saying a character is good or bad. That's too ambiguous, too arbitrary, too binary, whatever you want to call it. It's vague. Oh, it doesn't do damage as fast as all the other mages, and it doesn't do damage like this, and it doesn't this. And why do all the characters feel the same? And then when the character feels different, oh my god, it needs to be reworked at the first concept. What can make a character work? She has pretty decent damage and speed on the 1. It does have some utility, but it's not consistent. You just know some kind of utility is coming out of this. It doesn't hurt. Sometimes it helps more. And the uncertainty and inconsistency in her 1 does help her out because the enemy's going to have a hard time playing into it. 2 needs a lot more consistent management with potion cycling. Knowing when to throw just 1 out as opposed to throwing both, as well as what effects is it that you are going to pocket. Do you want the slows? Do you prefer the reductions? Do you want just flat power? And because of how slow it is, this is not something you can use reactively. 3 as well leaves her very vulnerable if she gets jumped on. Outside of the ultimate, and even with that, she is one of the more vulnerable mages if she gets jumped on. So what can make her work? Well, let's just go down the list. ADC. There is nothing in the kit suggesting she could be an ADC. Utility on her is inconsistent. She has little to no peel. She has a slow and a silent, and it's on the same ability. She has another slow that you have to potion cycle and you kind of get lucky for. She has a knockback in her ultimate, and that's about it for peel. Now the thing about support is if she's not building damage, she's not going to do a lot of damage, and supports are routinely behind. If she gets behind, if she builds tanky, she is not going to do any damage. You ignore her and you murder the carries. Assassin playstyle for non-conquest modes, jungler for conquest modes. The amount of damage she can put out in a particular amount of time is not that fast. If she is going pure damage, she is going to have a hard time keeping people away from her. They jump on her, she dies. Yes, the house benefits from roaming, but that's a bit of a red herring. Not to mention the house kind of snitches out your location because it always follows you. How's about a mage for non-conquest modes and conquest? If you're going full mage, her damage output again is kind of slow. An assassin will blow you up, an ADC will outbox you, and a tank will just be in your face the whole time. Warrior for non-conquest, solo laner for conquest. This is honestly where I figure her to be the best right now. It's the role that goes a little bit of damage, a little bit of protections. Not to mention because they are alone, they don't fall behind in farm like a support. Yes, she has some pretty good damage. She just needs more survivability. More tankiness buys her more time to output more damage. But why not go a guardian like Yorm in the solo lane or a different mage in the solo lane? Mages in the solo lane are generally going to get outclassed because mages have low base damage, high scaling. That means they need to build power to do damage. If we had more item slots, it wouldn't be a problem, but right now you have to choose whether you want that damage or you want that defense. Every defensive item that you get is going to lower your overall damage output. Every damage item you get is going to lower your final defenses. Guardians have an easier time in the solo lane because they have high base damage, lower scaling, and they have natural better defenses. Because of that, their items look like this. Lifesteal, lowering power, lowering protections. The item effects are much more important than just the power they provide. This kind of build on a mage doesn't have a lot of power, it's not going to work well with the scaling. But with her passive, she doesn't have to compromise. She is able to get the single best defensive item in the game. Gauntlet of Thieves, 2,350 gold, 300 health, 50 of each protection, and an aura that adds another 10 of each for you and your team, and 15 HP 5. Then why not just go support? Once again, gold, experience. You can get this bad boy stacked without needing people by you. And you don't need minions. And if you do happen to have somebody by you, tower gets the kill, or if minions get the last hit for you, it just goes by even faster. Admittedly, I think she's going to have a hard time in Conquest just because there is a laning phase. She ramps up and gets better and better throughout the game, but getting there is kind of a problem. In non-Conquest modes, you kind of bypass all that. But game modes aside, you're going to want to play her about the same. But she is different and needs way more micromanaging than any other character. First thing you do in a match, buy your build real quick, be a responsible pet owner, take your house for a walk. If not, it's going to get antsy, it's going to tear up the house. In that free time that you have, if you don't like the shape of the one, use it. Odds are you can get a better shape, and honestly, it doesn't matter unless you're in Conquest, don't start with the oval. In non-Conquest modes, you do all that, you also get your 2, put it in the slot immediately, get another one brewing. Leveling her, you get the 1, you get the 3, you get the 1 again, you point skip, you get the 1 and the ult, and then you get the 2. The overall damage gain for getting the 2 is not nearly as good as getting the 1. Not to mention it's going to cost you way more mana to do just a little more damage. The plan in the early game is to get out of the early game, survive, don't die. You don't have to get kills, just don't die. Also, to not get pushed out of lane so easy, conserve your mana, don't get the 2 till level 6. Then after level 6, max the 1, get the ult whenever you can, max the 2, get the ult whenever you can, max the 3, get the ult whenever you can. Now for the builds for non-Conquest, I do enjoy starting Book of Thoth. I like the power, I like the 1000 mana fully stacked, and I like the MP5. Good mana sustain on this item. You also get extra power based on how much mana your build has. Synergizes quite well if later on you want a Hide of the Urchin or a Book of the Dead. You're playing it kind of safe, you're not even trying to poke too much. You need that 1300 gold so you can start stacking this. Top for those Jordans, which ones? Air Focus. I think cooldown goes a long way to increasing her damage output. She's not meant to burst you down in one go, she makes engagements go longer, she pokes you out over time. You got the boots going, your book's getting a little stacked. You can poke a little more, but don't get too crazy with it. Try to ult in a few of the fights, but don't go into the center of the fight. Stay around the outside. Get the essence, but safely. You are still very delicate and don't do enough damage back yet. Gauntlet of Thieves. It doesn't provide a lot at the start, so don't go crazy yet. Now you can start showing your face a little more. You've got 300 health, you got some HP 5, you got some protections rolling in. Don't be afraid to show your face, but don't get in their face just yet. When fights happen, you can go a little bit deeper, but not all the way yet. Remember, don't spam out your shots. You need to last as long in the house as possible. You can get more cabin juice, you can get more stacks. Once that is stacked, you can slap a little more here and there. You've got some sustainability, you've got some damage. You need some cooldowns. Pridwin, 20% cooldowns, a little bit of protections, and the passive. You get a shield equal to the amount of protections you have. Then after the time runs out or it gets destroyed, it will explode. The explosion damage is half of the shield's initial health. Then enemies hit by the explosion are slowed by 25% for the next 3 seconds. It brings cooldown, more sustainability, and disruption to the kit. Before you could burst somebody down, get in, get out. Now you can be in a fight a lot longer. You can consistently poke from a range with your 1, with your 2, but then you can store up your potions, go in with your 3, or go in from a range, walk yourself in, and you bring in some pretty good ranged damage with tankiness. I think those 4 are the core. Book of Thoth, Shoes of Focus, Thebes, Pridwin. Depending on your composition and what the enemy team looks like, the last 2 are situational. If we need to shred tanks, Soul Reaver, Obsidian Shard. If you need more tankiness, Hide of the Urchin, Mantle of Discord. They have too much attack speed, Midgardian if you want more utility, Gem of Iso, Divine Ruin if you need shred and anti-heal, Pestilence if you need tankiness and anti-heal, or Contagion. She's not like a hunter who's just gonna build the same build all the time. And honestly, the final thing that's gonna make it all fall apart is team composition. You are going to need some form of Guardian at the forefront. Sort of tanky, but also has some damage output themselves. Xingqian, Ares, Kabrakan, Bacchus. Don't get mad if I don't mention a god, these are just quick examples. I know if I don't mention one, what about Sylvanas? If I don't name them, that doesn't mean they don't work, doesn't mean that they do. I just didn't name them all. Now, if the enemy doesn't have a lot of jumps or leaps, Ymir could work here. That wall is insanely good at controlling the area. Or you can put a Kabrakan in the jungle and some kind of warrior as support. Oleron would be the best fit into this, but some kind of magical ADC alongside a physical ADC. Or if not, some mage with good space control but damage all the same. Hera would be fantastic. Vulcan's not bad. Kukulkan, sure. Merlin, I suppose suppose, but he might get banned. And you're going to stick together and not do the old 3-2. Baba will lead, poking away at the enemy. This is the part where it's like, why play Baba Yaga when you can play something else? Ranged magical damage. Yorm has some, that's what makes him so good. Baba has more. And with the way you've built her, she's also tanky. It's a war of attrition. The point is not to kill them in one go, it is to push them back, make them uncomfortable, get them low enough to the point where they don't want to stick around. So either they back off or they take the damage. Final thoughts are, I like her. I could do with a lot less of the randomness, and I can understand there is a skill in minimizing the randomness and being as consistent as possible. You can do well with this character, but sometimes you do better and you had no input whatsoever. Playing against her is like playing blackjack. You can count the cards, you can play the odds, but you don't win every hand. Sometimes house always wins. Feel free in the comments to add stuff I missed, stuff I got wrong. I'm not going to get mad. It just helps everyone out in the end. Now get out there and become the god you were meant to be.